Hey, welcome. You are looking at another show of Elevate and Empower with Kim and Gilia. Remember, what we do here is real talk. We motivate, we coach, we're going to do some laughing, and depending on the topic, right, we may do some crying. But the thing we're trying to do here in this space is give you all the tools to help you live out your life to the fullest. Live your best life. We hear that all the time, right, Kim? That's what we're
Right,
trying to
right.
do. Yes,
Let's live our best lives.
exactly. So, some of these topics may be a little bit deep. We got something really special for you today. We're going to be talking about DEI. And I mean, why do you think we need to talk about DEI? Why are we talking about DEI in
Everybody's talking about DEI.
2025? In 2025, something that was spinning off of the civil rights movement, right? Civil Rights Act back in the 1960s. Here we sit in 2025 having this conversation because of our president of the United States currently holding office. Correct? Yes. So let's just start out because we're just going to get into it. And before I get into it, I just want to throw us off on a curve. We're like I said, real talk. We're just coming to you with everything. And I just want to do a celebration because, my daughter has made honor roll the whole entire year thus far. She made honor roll, right?
Hey, Dopey. Congratulations, baby. That's my boo.
I'm so proud. And the thing is, I try to give her these types of education. Actually, she wanted to come on this show because she wanted to talk about her feelings about our current administration and how they're moving in this direction and what makes her unhappy.
I love that from the mouth of babe. Let's do a show.
Yeah, she's 11.
Featuring
11.
Lori.
Exactly. And I said,
no,
babe, we're going to do a little bit something different this time, but definitely, we consider it. So I love that our young people are so tuned in. And I also am unhappy that they have to deal with something such as this topic, DEI. So let's first of all.
Well, hold on. I'm not unhappy that they have to deal with this topic because, like you said, DEI is a spinoff. Really, it's standing on the shoulders of civil rights.
I love it.
Yeah. So this is what our young people, this is what we have built for them. Our parents, our parents' parents, our parents' parents. I just read. Oh, and I forget her name. I just saw like a YouTube short today about one of the young ladies that integrated Arkansas public schools, and she was 15.
Wow.
She's still alive today. She's still alive today.
We should have had her on the show.
Well, the thing I'm saying is this is not ancient history. Like our fathers were around when a lot of these civil rights measures were signed. This is not ancient history.
True. Good point. Good point. Exactly.
So
we do want to make sure our young people are tuned in, right?
Yeah, because we are always going to need civil rights, DEI, as long as there is racism and bias in our world.
Then you said we're always going to need, right? And we don't have it now. Now what?
Let's get into it.
So what is DEI? Diversity, equity, and inclusion. Say that again for me, Kim.
DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And for some of you out there, you might have heard DEIB, which is diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. There's all different things that they add on to the end, but the main foundation is diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Right. And so, if you go back to the 60s and you think of, affirmative action, we weren't saying DEI back then. We were saying affirmative action. So really DEI
in the 60s, we were saying civil and human rights.
Correct.
We just wanted to be treated as humans.
I love it.
Actually, correct. Someone sent me a post yesterday that said, if someone is 60 years old today, that is the lifetime of civil rights. Like 60 years, not 100. Not 200. So 61 years ago, you and I could not drink out of a drinking fountain labeled for white people. We would have to enter in through the back door. We would not be able to go into restaurants. And actually, my dad tells the story of our grandmother, because we're cousins, y'all. We forgot to say that. And my name is Kimberly, by the way, my cousin Gilia. Our grandmother, when they would travel from Tennessee to Ohio or Ohio to Tennessee, right? North, south,
Yes.
south to north.
Yep.
Our grandmother, Grandma Josephine, would have to pack a picnic basket, and they would stop and eat on the side of the road. And my dad was a young boy at the time. Your dad was a little older. And my dad just thought it was fun. They were having picnics on a road trip. He said later he realized it's because we were not allowed to stop and go into the local whatever restaurant.
Isn't that sad? I mean,
In the north and the south, north and the south, not just the south.
Well, remember I was telling you how dad was, my dad, your uncle was, Robert was talking about how they had to be in the house at 9 o'clock. They would ring a bell. And if you were not in the house, I was like, well, Dad, what happens if you're not in the house and you're walking the streets? You wouldn't be alive, right? You have to be in the house as an African American at that time. That there are different terms, Negro.
They're called sundown towns.
Yeah.
And there are some that they may not exist legally on the books, but there are still sundown towns, because you and I know there are certain places that you and I as Black women do not want to be in after dark, especially you living in Georgia, but even me in Ohio, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And not just Black people. At the time, it was anyone non-white. If you were, Latino, if you were Mexican, if you were Asian, if your butt wasn't in the house, you could get lynched.
Well, see, yeah, and it's a shame that we're dealing with this now. And so my point I was circling around to is that DEI is really, it bounces off of that movement, and it's like the organizational framework, that's come from that movement, that promotes fair treatment of everyone and allowing everyone to have like participation, into everything. So that, that's what it is,
So simple.
and it's not just, African Americans, Latino, it is also white women, which we're going to find out stats on that later.
Right. White women, veterans, our brothers and sisters that are disabled. The list goes on.
Yeah. Exactly. So what it's set up to allow all of us to thrive. You hear, all of us to thrive. That's why we have.
But some people don't want us to thrive.
Good point. Good point. Yeah, we will. Yeah. Who?
Let's talk about
real
it.
Talk.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah. So as I stated before, because we wanted to say, well, who invented DEI, right? We told, just in case we gave you what the initials stand for, because you'd be surprised. Some I've heard they can't even say the initials. So that's one of the reasons why I thought, that was important for us to talk about this, right? This is your bread and butter. You love this. So I knew this. Exactly.
Yeah. To all of you, I'm a cultural anthropologist, but I worked for many years as a DEI consultant. So I would go into companies, nonprofits, governmental agencies, and talk to the employees, the staff, the C-suite, exactly about what we're talking about today. Exactly. And you cannot imagine the pushback that myself and my team would get about what you just said, Gidge, about telling people it's just fair treatment for all. People would be like, oh my God, fair treatment. And I'm like, why wouldn't you want everyone to be treated fairly? And that's the topic for your show.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And it's like, you say this, but why don't you start interviewing your staff or why don't you kind of dig into the data and see, based on the diversity or non-diversity that you have in your company, what is different in terms of, positions, high-level positions, in terms of pay, because if we do the whole pay, who gets paid the most in this world today, who gets paid the most?
And you, I gotta say, you in your expertise as an accountant and payroll specialist, I'm sure you see the hard black and white numbers of who gets paid the most. And obviously, we're not going to talk about that because I'm not trying to get you fired. Make your money.
Yes, thank you. I do have a daughter that's 11,
but you have decades of experience, and you know who gets paid the most in the several Fortune 500 companies that you work for, you know.
I'm going to just give you the span real quick, and I can just tell you that white males are paid the most and Black females are paid least. So that's your spectrum that we'll provide. And again, this could be, we'll end up doing this show again because there's so much content. Like, we had a plan how we were going to present this information, but it's so good. It's so much. We are just going with this right now. We're just going with it. Right. Exactly. Because we've touched on the fact that, when you think, well, who created DEI? And it was so funny because remember, Kim, I was like, hey, who created it? Like, who was the brain behind creating DEI, and who formatted it, right? And then when we started looking at it, and again, this is your thing. So you knew I'm asking those questions, right? We looked and it was like, well, no one created it, basically. It rooted off of the civil rights movement, right?
Social justice,
yeah,
human rights.
Exactly. And why did it? Because of the discrimination, of unrepresented people, and based on sex, race, national origin, religion, and as I go on, right? Which is why we needed that. I mean, you got to think about, the times back then, not being able to vote. There's just so much history. Like, there's so much that we could talk about on a different show as to why we need it. Like I said, affirmative action bounced off, and then we have DEI. That's the organizational framework, right? And I think it further developed in 2022, right? So,
and if I could jump in really quick
please.
and say, to me, at this point, 2025, you said under DEI impacts underrepresented people. And my framework as a cultural anthropologist, as a former DEI consultant, as a human, is underrepresented people are literally anyone that is not a straight white male billionaire. So the 99.9% of us, this is my opinion, my thoughts, my critical thinking. Like I said, as a human being, as a social scientist, that DEI impacts almost everyone, unless you are a straight white male billionaire. So there are a lot of white men that are like, it doesn't impact me. Exactly. If you have a disability, if you're LGBTQIA+, if you are a veteran, perhaps someone in your family is of color, if you are not, Christian in this country, come on.
Who do we see? Who do we see
Everybody.
losing it in the news now?
What'd you say?
Men who are veterans. Who do we see losing it in the news now?
Exactly, because they feel so betrayed.
Yeah.
And one more thing, and then I feel like Kanye West. One more thing, I'm gonna let you finish. Anyone else get that reference?
Yes.
R.I.P. to the old Kanye. R.I.P. That's a whole other show. We should totally do a show on Kanye West.
Yes.
I'll
tell you what, I feel like on another show. Yes.
There is this social activist, and her name is blanking right now, but she said, imagine being able to play Monopoly, but you have to so you and I are playing Monopoly. You go around the board for 400 years. 400 years, you get to pass go, collect 200, buy things on the board, buy utilities. And then you're like, okay, Kimberly, it's your turn. And I'm like, but you have 400 years. And then when it's my turn to go, you're still like, no, you gotta go to jail. You can't go around the board as fast as me. And then you ask me, you're like, Kimberly, why don't you have as much money as me? Why don't you have Park Place? Why don't you have the utilities? I got all this cash over here. You have nothing. What? You're not working hard enough. You got to pull yourself up by your bootstraps. And I'm like, you just have 400 around the Monopoly board. I just wanted to say that. And this is not mine. This is a social justice advocate. I will find her name and post it in the show notes.
That was well stated.
A Black woman, of course. This was a Black woman that came up with this analogy.
That I love it. And you just brought me to the fact that the whole fight over we need reparations, right? The whole talk about that, right? And I was always like, okay, I hear that, but how are we going to do that? Like, how do we do that when it's fair, when a lot of our ancestors are gone already, you know? So now, you know, I was already questioning that move, right? And now you take away DEI. So what are we doing? Like, what are we
We're
doing?
going to have a reparation show. Because let me tell you, everyone in this country has received reparations except ancestors or descendants of the enslaved Africans. Jewish people from the Holocaust have received reparations, and the Holocaust wasn't even here. The Japanese that were interned during the war, unjustly, I might add, have received reparations.
When
Indigenous
you say
Americans,
reparations, what have they received? Like what was
it comes in different forms. They will receive just straight out cash. They'll receive land, tax benefits, and people talk about reparations for Black people, and automatically a lot of anti-Blackness comes up. You'll hear a lot of very evil, vile things like, oh, Black people just going to waste the money. They're just going to buy, Gucci with it or what. This country would not be one of the richest countries in the world without enslaved Africans
you got it.
having worked the economy.
And you got it. And the creations, like we don't
Even
get
white
credit for.
human traffickers, which people call slave owners, but I call them human traffickers in the South, because that's what they were. They were human traffickers and sex traffickers. They received reparations when most of the enslaved Africans were freed by Lincoln. I say most because some in Texas were still enslaved, which is why we have Juneteenth. They received reparations for their lost slaves because Black people at that time were inventory. We were products. We were, we weren't just workers. We were like products. So it's like someone taking, your factory. The white slave owners received reparations for their slaves being freed.
Listeners, are you hearing this? Are you hearing these words? Like, look at the facts that we are providing to you all.
History.
That's
Black
ridiculous.
history is American history, which they do not teach. I had to get a master's degree to learn all of this. And it was not cheap.
Right. Yeah. Well, you got to pay for it. Yeah. Yeah. You're not going to get reparations on that either. Yeah.
But why exactly? So why don't they teach this in elementary school?
I guess,
and
also
the Holocaust in Germany. So history does not repeat itself.
Oh, they don't, they've already changed the game on what they're going to teach in the schools now.
Already
in
with
regards
DEI.
to history, they're pulling that stuff out. So, I mean, we can just kind of forget that, and let's back up a little bit. Because like I said, we could just dive in and this gets so good, right? Let's break down what DEI, what each level is. So, like first, let's say diversity. What is diversity, right? And we say that is basically recognizing and valuing the differences of people, right? Be it the race, the gender, the religion, their abilities and experiences, right? That's your diversity. Now, equity. What is equity? Well, that's ensuring that everyone, has access to the same resources. Hear me? Same resources.
Well, sometimes more
opportunity.
That equality is having the same resources. Equity, once again, if you got to play the Monopoly game 400 years before me, and then I get to play, that's equal, right? But equity is letting me have 400 turns, and you sitting back and waiting.
Oh, that's not going to happen.
So that's equity.
Okay.
So
and then
I might need more time. Just like someone that's disabled, we could both be running a race, and let's say someone is let's say it's hurdles, right? And someone is in a wheelchair and I'm just, running, right? And if we're both in the same track with the hurdles, that's not equity, because the person in the wheelchair isn't, or the leg brace isn't going to be able to jump those hurdles. Now you take those hurdles away, then that's equity, because they get to do the race without the hurdles because I'm able to jump those hurdles because of my ability.
Well stated. I like that. I like that. Well, then let's do inclusion. And that is creating an environment where all are welcome, valued and respected, everyone, so that we all can thrive together. So, did I hit the mark on inclusion? You want to add a little bit to inclusion?
Perfect.
Okay,
Perfect.
let's get right in it. Who, Kim, benefits from DEI? Who is the most demographic area that benefits from DEI?
Statistics, cold hard facts, not opinion, is that white women benefit substantially. Substantially.
60% of
Actually,
DEI hires of white women, 60%.
right.
6 is only
And also
minority.
disproportionately.
Yeah. Did you hear?
White women, just like with affirmative action, when they took affirmative action away, Black women, we were like, oh, well, because white women were the ones that benefited the most. Same with DEI.
Well, yeah. And, the same thing, when you think about, like I said, 60% were DEI, hires. Well, also when you look at C-suites, and those are those, higher executive roles, the C-suites, you got 19% of white women. And then you have 4% of the, Blacks or Latinos, the other minority ethnic groups, right?
These
That's
aren't
4%.
women,
That's a
just
big,
the entire ethnic group. Yeah.
yeah. So, I mean, what are they not doing their statistics? Like, why would you take it away when you see white women are better? If your target is to the minority, Black and brown, well, you're not doing statistics. Why take it away?
Woo! I'm going to keep this really short and use one sentence instead of have a thesis. The patriarchy. The patriarchy does not want women to succeed. So it doesn't matter what race you are. So I used to teach in workshops. There's a social hierarchy here in the United States with rich, white, straight, Christian men being at the very top. And then after that would be, I could break down, but, regular white men and then women. So the patriarchy says the patriarchy says only men are able to lead. Only men should have these successes. Men are the best. And once again, that's a whole nother topic. So with women, they're next, white women are next on the rung. So they're like, okay, this is fine. So it's not that they're trying, I don't think it's not that. And when we say they, we also have to examine who they is, because a lot of us are complicit, no matter our race or gender, in bias and discrimination. But it seems like it is an attack. I'll say it on Black people, and it is. There's so much anti-Blackness in this world and in this country. But white women are the main beneficiaries because they are closest to the proximity of power, which is rich white men. So if I'm a rich white man and I have a daughter and no sons, I'll give her the job over some black person that's qualified, or some Latino person or some Asian person, because that keeps the power closer to the top.
Okay, so not because if we remove DEI, it'll put our white women back in the house.
Yeah.
Put them back in the kitchen.
Pregnant.
Put them back. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's like,
because as with this administration, we also know women's reproductive rights are being taken away.
Exactly. Because they're not having enough white children, right? So it's like, we've got to change the game here. So now we take DEI, we take you out of the workforce so that you can start having our children and get back in the kitchen.
Project 2025. There's also legislation in a lot of state legislators to make divorce harder. Because, women file divorce at 70% versus men's 30%, because a lot of women are unhappy in their marriages. And so a lot of white male legislators are like, well, if we make it harder to get divorced, women have to stay married. Girl.
Ladies, please open your eyes. Open your
Yeah.
eyes. Let's talk
Everyone
about.
should open their eye. This impacts everybody. Everybody.
Yeah, it does. And here I want to move into, because I know the show, we don't have enough time to get everything crammed in, but I think it's very important for us to talk about the misconceptions, right? And I can lead into that as we came out of the fact of who benefits from DEI and what is their theory, or what is the theory behind, because of that's the group, white women, that benefits. Why would they take DEI? And then we just talked about that. Now, what are the misconceptions on DEI? Like I have seen some that say, well, it's prioritizing diversity over merit. So we're getting a bunch of unqualified candidates, right? Really? Are the planes coming down for no reason now? Now that we've removed DEI? That's my
Well, I
thing.
think
That's kind of,
also
that's not
when
fact. Look, let me just put that. It's not facts. That's just my feelings, right? Well, I haven't flown lately, okay? So I just wanted to clear that up. That's what I feel.
well, I think it spreads a false narrative, particularly because when talking heads talk about DEI, or this current administration talks about DEI, they assume that um, people of color and women and veterans and the LGBTQIA plus have no merit, have no qualifications, that we just got the job because of our skin color, because of our gender, because of our sexual orientation. And I want people to really stop and think about that. So you're telling me because I'm a Black woman, I'm not intelligent. You're telling me because someone is gay or trans or bi, that they are not qualified to do this job. You're telling me because this person is a veteran that they're not smart enough to get this job. Come on.
What have they been doing this whole time? Protecting us, protecting this country. But yet they're
I mean,
not
you're
smart.
telling me there's
Haven't even
no
looked at the
smart
stats.
Latinos, no smart Asians, no smart Black people, no smart veterans?
Right. Like, oh my God.
Once again, but it talks to the patriarchy and white supremacy, that power and intelligence can only be held by white men. And listen, white men, rich white men, if you don't have $1 billion, they not effing with you. They don't think you good enough.
You're like, no, you with us. You with us.
I'm
They're
trying to
over there
tell
saying,
all the white men
the
out
white
there,
millionaires were saying, they not like us. They not
they
like
not like us.
us.
They not like us. Because you
Right?
see how they had a fit at the Super Bowl, but that's another topic.
The incident is ridiculous. So,
I mean, so it's like that merit and diversity cannot go hand in hand. And let me point out that Black women are the most educated group in the United States.
right. That's what
We got all the degrees.
see, that's what I was going to say. Like, how do you say that we're not educated, right? Black women are not educated. Minority group is not educated. Putting education on the table as being a factor when all you got to do is look at the stats of who's graduating, right?
People
Well,
don't
that's
look at stats.
really the bottom line is nobody is looking at news, which sometimes the news is not always that valid, right? But nobody's reading, nobody's looking. So they can say any and everything. They're doting on the fact that we are not reading, researching, and learning for ourselves. So then when they put out there, they'll believe us anyway because they're not reading. You're not learning. You know what they used to say about African Americans, Black people? Hey, just put it in a book. We could get anything by them. Always you put in a book because they don't read.
Right.
You
And
know?
now look at us, Black women, most educated in the country, over Asian men, over white men, over white women.
Exactly. So if nothing else, through this show, everyone, Kim and I want to encourage you to research, to read. Don't believe everything that you see on the news. Don't believe everything that's coming out of the White House. And not just, this is all listeners. I am not just saying this to Black listeners, to Latino listeners, to Asian listeners. I'm not the whole group, all the groups. I'm also encouraging you as white people to do it as well, because you're getting snowballed as well if you're not researching and you're not looking into these matters. So that's why I encourage everyone to start picking up that book, trying to get that information for yourself. It's just almost
Critical
like,
thinking.
yeah, it's like what we said, we revisit the last show we did was your greatness, and the way that you can move through your greatness is within you. The one thing I thought was really important that Les Brown said is that if you don't have an enemy within, the enemy outside could do you no harm. That is the most beautiful thing. So I would say in this whole DEI, or with anything that's happening here in the United States, get it in here. Because if you have it in here, you have it in your brain, you have that knowledge, nothing outside of that could do you no harm. You can work through anything because you actually have the facts. You actually know what's going on. That is what Kim and I are encouraging you to do. Now, let me say this.
Amen, sister.
I mean, look at me. I just got, when they say knowledge is power, it is. It is. I mean, I'm not going to say get in the executive office because we just removed DEI, but knowledge is power because you know the information. You're not just going to take everything that you hear. That is the most uncomfortable thing, right? So now we talked about, the misconceptions, right? Because I really wanted to get those misconceptions out of there. I want to know, Kim, because, it's happening. Yeah. It's happening. What is a bad thing? What's the fallout? If we're removing DEI, it's happening. Now, what's the fallout? Is there going to be a fallout? We're going to be all right? Is it a big deal?
Yeah. It is an extremely big deal.
Because it's nothing. Remove it.
Right.
We're all on the same plane.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Because they're like, oh, well, if you're qualified, you'll get the job, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think what a lot of people don't realize is their own unconscious biases. We tend to be more comfortable and higher and want to be around people who are just like us, right? So if you have, I don't remember the stat, but you might know this, how many CEOs are white men? It's like in the 90%, something like that, are white men.
You're in the ballpark, but don't chime me down to the exact.
Yeah. It's a very
don't
high.
Call me out like that. Don't call me out like that.
Yeah. Well, and I can just say to our listeners, when I used to do this exercise, I would say, tell me what a tech CEO looks like. And, it would always be like a white man. Oh, Mark Zuckerberg, it was always a white man. And that's typically probably what it is. So if people are just unconsciously wanting to be around people like them, then they are going to hire people like them. And without certain policies in place or different ways of thinking, we are not going to have a diverse workforce, right? Without DEI policies, without the education for people to know this. We're not going to have as much of a diverse C-suite, right? We're talking chief executive officer, chief financial officer.
Higher unemployment of the unrepresented.
Higher unemployment. Yeah. So here are some companies that are either scaling back on DEI or have gotten rid of it altogether, right? We have PepsiCo, Google, Target, Meta, which is like Facebook, Instagram, Amazon, McDonald's, Walmart, Lowe's, Disney. So we have these very multi-billion-dollar companies that are saying, we're going to do so much DEI, or we're not doing DEI at all because they're scared of the Trump administration. That will impact your life somehow, right? Because once again, this isn't just about like jobs. Like, this is about civil rights. This is about humanity. This is about living in not only a diverse culture, but a diverse world.
Civil rights was a long time ago. We don't have to worry about that right now. Like, why are we? I'm going to say it from the administration. Why? That was a long time ago. That has nothing to do with this generation now.
And when we say a long time ago, what did we say earlier? People are still alive that desegregated schools. Yep.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the executive order was, but President Trump just signed something this week rolling back FDR's executive order about federal contractors not being able to enforce segregation.
I was going to mention that. And so, again, without the reading and, getting this knowledge for yourself, I'm watching a lot of people running around saying, oh my gosh, so we're going to go back to colored bathrooms, white only, colored water fountains. All of this is freaking everyone out. And I'm just like, that can't happen.
Why not? Why can't it happen? So let me read this to you. This is a headline. Trump administration no longer requires ban on segregated facilities in government contracts. So if I'm a government contractor and I have a company, I could really have the colored bathroom and the white bathroom if I wanted. There's no ban on it anymore. It's not an all-out, it's not a saying we're bringing segregation back. But if I'm a federal contractor and I want to have a Black person only bathroom, I could do it. I could do it.
I wouldn't, I wouldn't move in that direction. I will tell the administration,
listeners,
I don't move in
what's stopping? What's stopping? What's stopping that from happening?
Don't act like our money, our presence in the economy is not going to affect anything. Oh, please don't act like that.
Right.
Because if we could just come together as a people, because we have a lot of minorities that they're billionaires. Like there's a lot of like Latinos and Blacks, the minority group, all of us in the minority.
When you say come together, what do you mean?
We need to come together. We can't.
But what does that mean? Come together.
That means that we create our own, our own. Well, they kind of have businesses already, but we have Black businesses too. But we create our own. We no longer any business that's owned, by whites, and we just don't cater. How it was back in the day. We don't cater. Remember the bus boycott. Okay.
The Montgomery bus boycott.
Yeah. Remember that?
They need our Black dollars.
They were losing so much money. They were like, okay, right. So don't act like you can do this, right?
Yeah.
Without
and it's happening. We are coming together. Target lost $15 billion because of people boycotting Target from dumping its DEI initiatives. So yeah.
That's what I'm saying. We're stronger together.
I mean, we're already doing it. It's already happening.
Obviously we need to be stronger in our culture as well, right? Black people, we just there's just so much, I think, separation. Right. No, what? No, we don't. We don't.
I've had this conversation so often.
Okay,
with people. We talk about Black people needing to be stronger. Black people have.
Oh, wait a minute. Let me rephrase, because I think I might have said it not where, maybe misunderstand, but I'm saying we're like crabs in a barrel, right?
That's human nature. Everyone is crabs in a barrel. And
we don't support each other enough. How the crabs are coming up and they're dragging them back down.
Black people completely support each other. Like there is this narrative and that is true. There are crabs in a barrel, but and I'm going to pull from my social scientist person over here. Culture and societies, that is a very normal psychological behavior to be jealous of someone that's doing better than you, no matter what the race. So that happens with white people, that happens between women. It depends on like the grouping that you're in, and it has nothing to do with particularly being Black. Like you can find
that went way back, right?
And I say that Black people,
when African Americans, Black people, that went way back. Because they isolate us anyway. You got the Blacks in the house, and you got the ones in the field, and the Blacks in the field didn't really care for the ones in the house because they were like, "How you get in the house and we're out in the field?" So I mean, we could go back.
Look at culture. This is everything. Everything almost is a binary, right? So you have, like you said, the narrative of the Blacks in the house, the Blacks in the fields, light-skinned Blacks versus dark-skinned Blacks, but you also have Democrats versus Republicans, liberals versus conservatives, Catholics versus Protestants, Jews versus Christians, the rich versus the poor, suburbs versus the city, gay versus straight, men versus women.
I'm exhausted.
It's how societies and cultures are formed, right? Because let's take Black people in the continent of Africa, right? Or let's say in Brazil. So it's not so much racism anymore because it's a monolith, but then it becomes tribal. I belong to the Igbo tribe. I belong to this tribe. I am a Francophile. I'm an Anglophile. We will divide ourselves no matter what. You put two people in a room together, they're going to figure out what separates them. But also, they will also figure out what unites them. And I will stand 10 toes down that Black people have worked together so hard to make us a magnificent race, despite the oppression, the torture, the human trafficking, the rape, the brutalization.
Yeah, beautiful.
And still I rise, as the great Maya Angelou says.
I mean, oh my God, we should end it here because I like how you said that. I mean, still I rise. I mean, even though there's so much more that we can go with, I mean, that's why we're going to have a part two. Because
do a part two.
Exactly. Because we could go into, as we were saying, how would DEI affect everything now? We said unemployment and bounce off of unemployment, then it affects the economy,
so in history.
Removing DEI.
They're erasing history.
And that too,
which once again isn't just Black history, isn't just women history, isn't just Latino history. It's American history. Like True. They are removing from the National Archives pictures of, there was an airplane, I think, that dropped the first bomb on Hiroshima, which was awful. But that's part of our history that we need to know, and the generations coming behind us need to know. They've erased that from the National Archives because the plane had the pilot's mom's name, and their last name was Gay. And because the word gay was on the plane, it was someone's last name, that is now erased from history. The Tuskegee Airmen Trump's ban on DEI. You weren't allowed to teach that to the Air Force. They have since reinstated it. Arlington National Cemetery they've erased the links to notable grave sites of Black American vets, of women vets, of Latino vets, of Asian vets, of Indian vets, anything that's DEI. Right. The government has a banned word list.
Okay, I'm full. I'm full. So what are we gonna do? What can they do if you are unhappy about this?
Change. This was your great idea. tell them what you told me, because I was like, oh, I didn't even think about that.
Okay, because we're keeping it real. I'm dehydrated.
Okay, well, I'll say it while you're drinking.
Yeah.
Gilia was like, oh, I wasn't able to get the number. And I was like, what number? And she said, I wanted to really deeply tell our listeners to call their congresspeople. And I was like, that is a brilliant idea. So we don't have the number, but Google is free.
Yeah.
Call your congresspeople and let them know that you're upset. Even though, I'm going to say this now, our Congress is doing a shitty job. Not all of them, but probably 99% of them.
Break it down.
So I know AOC and Bernie Sanders are like doing a tour, but I have seen, to let people know that they are against what's going on in the administration. But during Trump's State of the Union speech, people stood up and cheered when he was talking about these DEI efforts being slashed. Republicans are going to town, Republican congresspeople who are elected by the people, these are their constituents who they are there to serve, are coming into these town hall meetings with Republicans, with the Republican voters that voted for them, treating them awfully. Veterans, teachers, these are white people. They voted for Trump. They're like, I've voted Republican all my life. And these Republican congresspeople are treating them like trash. These are American citizens who should be able to be respected by their state and federal representatives, senators, and Congress. And they are treating them like trash. So much so that these senators, congresspeople are being booed out of their own congressional district meetings. They're being chased out into the parking lot, and they don't care. You know why? Because Donald Trump has a hold on them. And I just learned yesterday,
they're bought.
People are not being able to be admitted into the United States if you talk recklessly about this administration. Just came out yesterday. There is a
Afro, this is
so Afropunk, had this post that someone sent me, and they are saying they are giving a warning: wipe your phone of any text or messages that you may have said negatively about the administration, because people are being detained. People are being their computers are being searched, their phones are being searched. If you're not a citizen of this country, people, a man from France yesterday was turned back, said you can't come in this country. He had a passport, he had a visa, because he spoke out against the Trump administration. This is
so Kim,
this is Nazi Germany happening in the US.
Okay, so it's our coming. Listeners, if someone's listening right now and they're like, "Oh, Kim, that's not happening."
Yeah, I'm sorry. I can't convince anyone otherwise, because there are a lot of people that are saying it's not happening. This is, the news is blowing it out of proportion. It's fine. And let me tell you, this is exactly what people said during Hitler's Nazi Germany. It's not going to impact me. And now we see LGBTQIA people on the internet crying because the Republicans are talking about taking away the right to gay marriage. And you voted for Trump knowing we have white male veterans saying, I can't, I didn't want this. There's the woman from Venezuela saying, I didn't think he would attack us. Even there was like Mexicans for Trump saying, I thought that he would only mess with the bad people. If you look Latino,
he said what he was going to do.
Can stop you. There are American citizens that have been detained because they are Latino. ICE will stop you on the street, ask you for your papers. This is Nazi Germany happening 2025. The United States.
I don't go with, I didn't think it was going to happen to me. He said what he was going to do.
He said there is a whole document called Project 2025 that was free and on the internet that JD Vance and the Heritage Foundation wrote. It was out there before the election. People knew bad things were going to happen, but they didn't think it happened to them. They just thought it happened to the Black people. They just thought it would happen to the immigrants.
That's how they get you on board. They don't break it all down. That's how they get you. How's he going to get in office? Well, before we go, you can start with 202-224-3121. That'll get you to the U.S. House switchboard, where you can, and that pretty much will give you the House members and the committees to get further information as to getting your complaints and, to address your unhappiness. I will
Can you say that number one more time?
I sure can. 202-224-3121. That is 202-224-3121.
That's the congressional switchboard?
Yes. I feel like doing nothing is not an option.
The 92%, we chilling. And for those of you that don't know, 92% of Black women voted for Kamala Harris. And we told y'all. We told y'all.
We can't chill though, Kim. We can't chill. We got to do something.
We can do something, but we're not marching. Let me just say this.
What do we do?
Black women have been doing the work since they kidnapped most of us from Africa and brought us here. I say most of us because some of us were already here as indigenous people, or we may have come from the Caribbean or, Africa, Brazil. But most of us, I'm just talking about the 92% of Black women, we have been working our butts off since the day that we are born. I, as someone who studies politics,
born tired.
race,
I was born tired.
Yeah, exactly. Social justice. Black women were born tired, and I am advocating for Black women of the 92. If you voted for Trump, you can do whatever you want. But if you were the 92% that supported Kamala Harris, rest. Let somebody else do it. Let white women get on the front lines. Let Asian men get on the front lines.
Will
Let
that
Latino
happen?
women.
Will that happen? Which is why
Hey,
this is what I'm saying. I don't agree with you saying rest. We don't have the opportunity. I know, I get you. We're tired, but this is not the time to rest. We have really got to join in now with the fight. We can't rest
well,
because how
let me
worse
tell you why. And I've read a lot of Black women saying that this administration is poking the bear. Like, they keep coming out with so many things because they want Black people on the front lines. They want Black women on the front lines. That way they can institute martial law. Have you noticed you don't see a huge police presence at all of these protests with white people?
That's true. True. Yeah. Well,
Black
I mean, look what
people,
happened with
and
January 6th.
I'm not saying only Black people, but majority Black people in the civil rights. Black people have given up, so many Black people have given up their lives for the humanity and civil rights and equality of all people in this country, right? If it wasn't for the civil rights, we would not have the immigration that we have today. There are
Yeah,
very
that was
few
the
people.
misconception with Martin Luther King. He was for all people, right? Like they were
He was for
centering
all
around saying,
people.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But because of the anti-Blackness in the world and in this country, Black people suffer the most, right? And there are very few, we have very few allies in the Black community. We have very few, I'm not saying none, I'm saying very few. We have very few people that stand with us on the front lines. We have very few people that are advocating for our equality, our humanity. Even with the suffrage movement of women getting the right to vote, they didn't want Black women to have the right to vote. So
True.
Black women were
True.
the ones like, come on, white women, let's join together. Let's do this. And they were like, get your N-word and sit down.
Yeah,
And so a
exactly.
lot of Black women of the 92% now are like, we have done our jobs. Because like you said, facts, the people that get paid the less in companies are Black women. And
Yes.
I can say, me as a consultant going into companies and nonprofits, and I do qualitative interviews. What's going on in the company? How do you feel? Never, I have never interviewed one Black woman that everything's been fine. I don't, that said, oh, I get treated fairly. Oh, I've gotten the promotion. Oh, I get paid fairly. Oh, I've never had a racist incident happen to me. I've done hundreds of interviews. I always walk away in any 50-page report I write. I always state that Black women are suffering the most adverse effects of your company, of your nonprofit, of your governmental agency, of your school. There is nothing else we can do.
Well, Kim, and we do have to wrap this up with your work and going into these companies and researching and trying to come up with a plan. You come out, how do you feel when you come out? Is it exhausting? Is it
Exhausted. I always say I'm a former DEI consultant because I burned out. There came a time where it was either going to be my job or death. I don't know if you can see all these gray hairs,
keeping
right?
it real? Keeping it real. I know that's right.
Heart palpitations. I would
On that pretty
literally
head
have
of
a
hair.
meeting or a workshop. And if I was working from home, I would get in bed, get under the covers, and just breathe, for maybe 30 minutes to an hour, get out of bed and go to work. When I talk to Black women, this is how they feel in work. This is why Black women are also the highest number of entrepreneurs, because the American corporate workforce treats us awfully. Because not only are we Black, but we're women. And there's a term coined by Kimberly Crenshaw. It's called misogynoir. Or I'm sorry, she says intersectionality. It's the intersectionality of being Black and a woman. Women have the highest rates of autoimmune disease. Like, this is It is killing
Yes.
us.
Oh, and I
It
have
is
someone,
killing
yes.
us.
I have someone we're going to have on the show that actually is affected by that. Yeah, that can talk more about that.
So
Yeah,
this
we
is why I tell Black women to rest. We've done our job. We voted nine. We were the highest group to vote for Kamala Harris, with Black men voting 82%. So nice job, Black brothers. But there are some Black brothers that voted for Trump, right? Because they're
yeah,
men.
that yeah. I
So
listen
Black
all the
women
time. Yeah.
overwhelmingly saw the direction that this country was headed and said, let's vote for the vice president who's Black and Indian biracial, who's brilliant, who's a lawyer, who's a state attorney general, who's the vice president, who wanted to give, money to first-time home buyers. Was she perfect? No, but
Right.
she wasn't trying to kill us.
And we're gonna have I wanna have a show. I want to talk about the Black males that voted for Trump and their perspective and what, why do you think that is? So that's going to be another show. Look, we are going to talk about everything. And again, it's not going to be warm and fuzzy. It may be things you just might not want to hear, or you may hear things that you're shocked that Kim and I are saying or feeling, right? But this is what this show is, education, motivation, trying to give you all the tools so you can level up and be out there. We want you educated, right? So that part of being knowledgeable is helping you live your best life. Because again, I say all the time, you don't want to walk around like a bobblehead. I actually say that to my manager all the time. I challenge me. I need more. I'm not a bobblehead. I don't want to be treated like a bobblehead. I feel like I have to say that. Like, don't, yeah. So I'm like, I'm not a bobblehead. I'll go buy one. You go buy one, I'll go buy one. But let's not be one. What I always say. Right? All right, Pam. Say your spill. Like, subscribe. Information's in the notes. Yeah, it's kind of like you say. I love the way you say it. And you look so gorgeous today. Oh my God.
Thank you.
You do. You look so gorgeous. I'm so glad that we're cousins. We said on the previous show that we're so much alike because we're adventurous. We think outside the box. We love education and we love educating. And we both love to motivate. So I hope everyone continues to tune in to our show because we have so much more to give you. Yes. And
so much more to give you. So much more to give you.
right. We want you to be like us, right? Yeah, I know there's some they not like us. But
yeah,
we want you to be like us. Right?
And it's okay to have different opinions. But
Absolutely. we do.
And we're open. Leave a comment if you don't agree with something that we said. We would love to hear your thoughts.
Oh, please comment. Bring it. We love to hear your perspective on what you hear in this show. We'd even love to hear if you want us to talk about something that you're feeling inside and you just don't feel comfortable, talking about it yourselves, but you want that information out there. Let us know. We'll get it out there for you because that's what we do. All right. So we enjoyed all of you. We enjoyed talking to you guys. We will be back with some more content, more education, information, motivation. Like, subscribe, leave comments, do it all. Until next time.